This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, 30 years ago, a film called UHF hit the theaters, and I've always been a huge Weird Al Yankovic fan. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see UHF in the theaters, but I've certainly got it on Blu-ray home, and I still crack up at the film. Well, I have Al's, or I should say George Newman's sidekick from the film, the guy that put up with all the negative end. Yes, I have the guy who played Bubbles the clown, his roommate. Bob, I give you David Bowe. How do you do, Bowe?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I know we just had that discussion, if you just had an I in your name, people call you David Bowie.
Yeah, very, very close. I was told early on in my career that I needed to change my name because of David Bowie, and I didn't want to. I wanted to keep my name, but he had to change his name because his real name was David Jones. And, of course, there was the Monkees and Davy Jones, and he had to change his name, and he named himself after the Bowie knife.
Well, you know what? You stood your ground, as you should, Before I get into UHF, I was just wondering, give us some of your background.
I've always, wanted to be an actor my whole life. Always wanted to be in show business. My mom said that as soon as I could talk, I pointed at the television and said, I want to be in there. I want to be inside there and do what those people do. And so I've, basically got my SAG card early on when I was a teenager, doing a commercial for AMC Family Wagon. Did a few things here and there. My first movie was Back to the Beach. It was another comedy starring Frankie and Annette, but it also included a bunch of 80s people, including Pee Wee Herman, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Fishbone, and that was a lot of fun. It wasn't a huge success, but then I had an opportunity to meet with Weird Al Yankovic and his Jay Levy, his manager, who's also director of UHF.
He's also Gandhi.
And of course, and we hit it off, and the rest is history.
Wow. Yeah, I love UHF. I think it's a hilarious movie. And, I could not understand, I'm a movie critic myself, but I could not understand the critics trashed it. Like, Siskel and Ebert said they couldn't find a laugh anywhere, and I'm like, what movie did they watch?
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it got critically panned, but I understand why it didn't do well in the theaters based on the fact that it was released opposite Batman, starring Michael Keaton, and also the second installment of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones franchise. So, obviously we were up against some heavy hitters.
Yeah, but, I don't know. I get it, it's got a thin plot and this and that, but I don't know. To say it's not funny, I'm going to tell you, some of the subtle stuff in it that makes me laugh, the opening scene that pokes fun of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Weird Al's going after the Oscar and he grabs the Oscar and the place starts shaking up. One of the biggest laughs for me is when he jumps down on the slab and this great big rock comes down, hits him in the head, and he just goes, ugh, and then the rock just kind of tilts sideways, drops to the floor, and he keeps running.
Right. I thought it was very funny. I loved the movie. It really had, got a life of its own after coming and going in the theater after it was released on video. I'm stopped as an actor. I'm stopped and recognized more for UHF than any other thing I've done, and I've done over 100 things. So. Well,
you did over 100 things in that movie too. You, of course, played Bob, the roommate, who went along with George Newman, of course, played by Weird Al, all of his schemes. And when he got fired, you got fired.
Yeah.
And of course, he's having that opening daydream. Tell me, is nowadays is Weird Al still admiring how clean and shiny that grill is?
Yeah, he likes that shiny grill. No, he. The last time I spoke to him actually was when he was getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So that was the last time I ran into Al. That was last year. So it wasn't too long ago. And I don't think he mentioned the grill while he was getting his star, but he was happy to see me. I was kind of surprised that I showed up, and it was good to see him.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Weird Al song?
Probably Eat It.
Yeah.
Just always, really respected his, the way he replicated the video and everything, and his acting and everything. I just thought that was probably one of the first, and that was probably one of the best.
I remember when that video came out. I was born in 1972, so I pretty much followed Weird Al since the start. And UHF come out, of course, I was pumped for it. And of course, you play Bob, and I love that shot there in the apartment where he says, "Put on a happy face," or something. He sticks his fingers in your mouth and makes your mouth do a happy face. Now, was that in the script or was that improvised?
That was not in the script. That was something that I actually showed him that I could do by putting my fingers in my mouth. I could open my mouth really wide and kind of like an old-fashioned circus gurney, make a strange face. And he said, "Well, I want you to do that in the movie, but I get to do it. I get to put my fingers in your mouth," is what he said. And I said, "Okay, you got it."
You weren't nervous about him putting his fingers in your mouth? Like, to me, I would kind of be hesitant.
No.
No? Okay. So I take
it. Busy making, Twinkie wiener sandwiches, and so.
Well, that is your favorite. Is that still your favorite?
No, it actually wasn't my favorite then, but it was my character's favorite. I don't think I ever actually took a bite of one, on camera or off camera, but it did look appetizing.
You know what else looked appetizing? Mrs. Hockenberger's butter cookies. Those look so appetizing, but unfortunately, you've never tasted those. You had Yappy's dog treats. Tell us about those.
Yeah, that was actually a very funny part of the movie where I was dressed as Bobo the Clown, and he was promoting the butter cookies, but accidentally handed me the Yappy's dog treats, which were, of course, peanut butter cookies shaped like dog biscuits. So they didn't taste bad, but that is a great moment in the movie. And then, of course, say hello to Mr. Frying Pan. That's another one of my favorites. But that whole sequence is one of my favorites.
I listened to the commentary track on the film, and during that scene, where Weird Al goes as Uncle Nazi's clubhouse, Uncle Nazi, and he goes over there to the kids' corner, and he said in the commentary, when the kid spits in his face, you can see the kid almost lose it. And I've actually watched it since. It's like, yeah, the kid, you're just trying to hold back grinning.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, very, very funny scene, and yeah, you get clocked with a frying pan, and I loved it when that little squeak of that little horn. You were so enthusiastic with it, but when he tries to, after he hits you, when you just a very depressing sound comes out of that.
Yeah.
Was that in the script, or was that improvised too?
Well, the moment when we're wait, which part?
Like when you squeeze the horn there, when it makes that low, depressing sound instead of that happy sound. Was that in the script, or was that just something great timing? Because I thought that I love the sound that made.
That was in the script. That did work out perfectly. Yeah. just like they'd written it. Yeah.
Okay. What was your favorite memory working on this movie? Because you must have had a ton of them.
I did. I had a lot of fun making this movie. We filmed it in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We had two incredible producers coming off of huge movies. Gray Fredrickson was, one of the executive producers. He had come off doing the Godfather movies, believe it or not. He worked with Francis Ford Coppola on all of his movies. And the other producer was Gene Kirkwood, who had just come off with The Pope of Greenwich Village, which was another huge successful movie. So we were all very excited to be working with these producers. And Gray was from Tulsa, and he really wanted to shoot a movie there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we shot the movie in Tulsa, and I had a blast there. But one of the things that I did not foresee was that Fran Drescher, of course, the nanny, Fran Drescher, decided that I was going to be her best friend during the making of the movie. So she kind of anointed me as being her buddy, and we were inseparable. We did everything together. Anytime she would go out to lunch, I had to join her. We would go out to dinner. We would hang out. I'd be up in her room watching TV, and that was a lot of fun. But one of my favorite memories was just hanging out with Al and coming up with bits to do in the movie that weren't in the script. One of which was the fact that I could catch grapes from across the room.
Oh, yes.
And during one of our breaks, I said, "Hey, toss me a grape." And he threw a grape across the room, and I caught it with my mouth. And then he did it again, and I caught the next one, and he did it again, and I caught the next one. He said, "Hey, this next scene that we're doing, why don't I do this while we do the dialogue?" And I said, "Let's try it." So we did it, and we did it in one take. We had that was the first take we tried, and I caught all of them, and we got it in one take. So that was a great memory.
And you know what? It's innovative too, because it would have been just dull. It's a dialogue scene, but that actually showcases something that you can do. Because as the movie went on, Bob, you saw less of him because Stanley Spiskowski comes into the picture and gets more attention. So I love the fact that you're innovative and you found ways to make yourself stand out, and I think that's great.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was my first starring role in a motion picture. I was on all the posters and the ads, and I was very excited about it. And there's been only a couple since, but it was a lot of fun.
So when you hung out with Fran, did she eat Twinkie Wiener sandwiches and Mrs. Hockenberger's butter cookies and Yappy's dog treats?
Fran and I, we went and we tasted the local cuisine. We would hang out. She was always very, very good to me. She later on, of course, invited me to be a guest star on her TV show, The Nanny. And that was fun. The cast was incredible. Getty Watanabe and Michael Richards, and of course, so many great. I got to meet Billy Barty. Kevin McCarthy. It was one of my heroes from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So just a great all around cast. And of course, just hanging out with Al. My friends came to visit all the way from Los Angeles. Where I grew up, and they were in my room, and Al called and said, "What are you doing?" I go, "I got my friends up here," and he said, "I'll be right over." And he shows up in my room, and then he makes a beeline for the bathroom, and we hear him doing something. He plugs something in, and all of a sudden he's making his famous Weird Al Yankaritas. And we started having margaritas, mixed by Weird Al himself, and he called them his Yankaritas, and that was a lot of fun for me and my friends to get to know Al and have a few drinks. Yes.
Well, Fran Drescher's opening scene in the movie still makes me laugh. I love it when she's working as a secretary in this rundown station. Weird Al goes, "I'm the new station manager." And her reaction, she goes, "This job really sucks." I love that. And of course, Fran Fran was always, I thought, always gorgeous, you know, and she was so classy. And I don't care what anybody says. I've heard so many people say they're annoyed with her voice. I don't get tired of it. I love her voice.
She's very, very, very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And, then she opens her mouth and some people are turned off by it. But I think she was very, very talented as well. Very funny, very creative. And that opening scene, I think, was the first scene that I shot on the movie. And I remember just kind of being introduced to her, right there in that scene, and it was an eye opener, definitely.
Yes. Yeah, I always loved her wardrobe. And you mentioned Kevin McCarthy. I heard that Kevin McCarthy had such a blast on this movie. What were your memories of him?
He loved chewing the scenery. He really loved being the bad guy. He loved going, as big as they just told him, bigger, as big as you can, and he loved that. He loved being able to just kind of push the boundaries of his comedic, abilities, and he really, really shined. I thought he made a great villain, and he was very, very entertaining.
I love that first scene where he's raging about, you think this is a number 2 pencil? But,
right.
And John Paragon, I'm sorry, John Paragon was, that laugh he did there in that opening scene, you go, but Dad!
Yeah. John was from the Groundlings, which I'm also a member of the Groundlings Improv in Los Angeles, and it was great getting to meet him and work with him. Like I said, just really, really good people. David Bowe, for Mean Streets, he'd worked with De Niro, and all sorts of interesting people on this movie.
One of the funniest jokes, again, I could pick so many funny jokes, but this here, again, I question Siskel and Ebert saying they didn't find a laugh, because, again, this was so unexpected, where the guy comes in and says, I'm hearing an awful lot of stuff about this UHF station. And he talks about, them broadcasting out of a closet, and he goes, do you enjoy wasting my time? And he tells him to get out, and he goes, and take that ridiculous thing off. And the guy has a raccoon tail on the back of his hat. And he turns around, and he tears his mustache off.
Right. That was very unforeseen, that moment. That was very funny. I love the one of my biggest laughs was Getty inside the closet, and they open the door, and it's a supply closet
from The Shining.
And they open the door, and of course he says supplies, and gets them. I always laugh out loud when I see that for some reason.
Getty's, of course, famous for 16 Candles, and here he gets. Again, he's the guy that teaches karate and martial arts up there in the studio apartment. And I just love it, you can hear the thudding and the crashing around in the apartment and going, stupid! And you can hear him while you guys are trying to talk.
Yep, that was very silly. Quite silly.
And of course, it brings up the Wheel of Fish scene, which is a take on Wheel of Fortune. And that scene is so funny because of our expectations and what expectations aren't met on the part of the character and the reaction by Geddes.
Wheel of Fish is classic, is all-time classic, absolutely.
Yep, I thought that was great. Stupid! You're so stupid!
You're so stupid! Yeah.
I love that. That was one of the funniest jokes in the movie. And, of course, parodies like, Conan, the Librarian.
Yeah. Now, some of those we didn't get to see, while we were making the movie. I wasn't there on the set when they were making the Conan the Librarian or the Rambo takeoff or the
Weird Al was awfully jacked during that scene.
I don't know if I just lost you there, but I heard.
Oh, I was going to say Weird Al was awfully jacked in that Rambo scene.
Yeah. But it was cool to finally see the Weird Al song in the movie, which of course Beverly Hillbillies, under the tune, Money for Nothing, so a lot of that stuff I didn't get to see until I finally saw the movie at the premiere. So that was fun and exciting to see finally. The song that they had done for the movie, and to hear the other music, and to see the other videos that they shot.
Yeah. Now, Michael Richards plays, of course, Stanley Spadowski, the actor slash janitor. Now, Richards, unfortunately, has had a little bit of controversy in his past, but nonetheless, what a standout character he plays here. Who likes to clean? And all this guy wants to do, like, do I still get to be the janitor? When he's being offered a chance of a lifetime to be part of a TV show.
Wait a minute, do I still get to be the janitor? Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, he was really committed to that character. He was great. He when they said cut, he totally turned it off, and he was actually a very into meditation and doing like Tai Chi on the set, and he was a vegetarian, I believe, and just doing all these like really healthy things and positive things and then when it was time to shoot and be Stanley Spadowski, he just turned it right on, and he was amazing. I thought his performance was incredible. He's
the only one that had a broom that made lightsaber sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. My parents gave me this mop when I was 8 years old. We never been apart.
He needed that mop back.
He needed that mop. And of course, in the tradition of women with funny voices, Victoria Jackson playing the love interest.
Oh, Victoria was the best. Loved working with her. She couldn't have been nicer, and she really is that strange. She really is that person. She's just kind of nuts, and couldn't be nicer, couldn't be sweeter. Stayed friends with her as well, and she invited me to many a taping of Saturday Night Live. We got to go spend time with her at the after parties, and you're hanging out with Victoria and Neil Young, and Phil Hartman, sitting in a dark, loud, smoky bar after SNL. It was just like one of the highlights of my life. Just really, really loved Victoria.
And of course, one of the other scenes in the movie that just, again, it's so friggin' funny. It's somewhat graphic, but Emo Phillips as the the professor, the shop professor who accidentally cuts his thumb off, and his reaction.
Oh, the emo scene was beyond classic. We all were on the set just to watch that scene. We knew it was going to be something special, and it really was. It was, basically everything you saw in the movie, they just did it right there, and it really wasn't a take two. They just, what they did was what they did, and that's what made it in the movie. And Emo was hysterical. I saw Emo at the Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony for Al last year as well. He was there. It's good to see him.
Did you call him Mr. Butterfingers?
I did not call him Mr. Butterfingers.
Can you believe that?
I should have.
Is my face red? You can tell I watched this a lot. But yeah, and of course Billy Barty no longer with us playing Noodles McIntosh. I thought he took a lot of abuse and foul play from Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, he sure did. That's right.
You guys took it a little easy on him, though.
Say again?
You guys took it easy on him, though.
Yeah, we tried to. He was just an icon, and someone that I was very, very excited about working with and meeting, and that was very cool.
Yeah.
I felt bad for the cameraman who had to hold him on his shoulders for the last third of the movie, because Billy was not a light gentleman. He was he weighed a lot. Have him up on his shoulders like that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and of course, You had Stanley Brock as Harvey Belchick, and yeah, and of course Anthony Geary as Philo. I loved it when he names his TV show and opens up the paper like.
Yeah, Tony Geary was awesome, and what a great departure for him. Great character for him to play after being on General Hospital for so long, and that was really cool. I really loved his character a lot too.
Yeah. No, 30 years old. Can you believe it's been 30 years since this movie came out?
Yeah, I cannot. I can't believe that we haven't done a sequel yet. I think it's time that we got serious about putting our heads together and writing a sequel to UHF, and we've got to do it.
I think a sequel should be done. I know the movie did not do well at the box office, but I mean, look, it's got a cult following. How many films have not done well at the box office that ended up having a huge cult following afterwards?
Yeah, it really is. Like I said, I get recognized for two things. One is UHF, and when people say, they don't just say, "Oh, I loved you and UHF." They say UHF was my favorite movie. Mm-hmm. Most people say it was my favorite comedy, UHF. So if they did have it in their life, it's because that was the one tape or that they watched 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
That they just couldn't stop watching, that they loved. And the other thing that people recognize me from is a little bit different. I was the stalker on 90210, the original 90210, and I tried to rape Tori Spelling. So that's something else entirely.
Did you do it as Yakko the Clown or Bubbles the Clown?
I did not do it as Bobo the Clown. That would have been interesting. But I made a different choice there. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the plot twist that I won't give away here, but I loved the whole thing with the bum in the movie, Vance Kolvig.
Right. Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, that you have to pay attention to this kindly old bum, because he does make a difference.
Although I love that when the camera's panning along and he's sitting on a bench with this blind guy, and the blind guy's playing Rubik's Cube, and he goes, "Is this it?" No. Yeah. Is this it?
No.
Yeah, I've seen this movie so many times. What would you say was the most difficult, most challenging thing to making this film?
Well, I mean, it's hard to do comedy. It's hard to do things that you make a choice, and you make a choice on your your tonality, and you're hoping that it's going to come across right, and not be too sarcastic or sardonic, or that people are going to get it. So when you're making it, you're trusting the director, you're trusting Al, who wrote the script, that their instincts were right, and I thought that it all came out great. I thought that we were right, and unfortunately people didn't see it in the theater, but like you said, it's become a cult classic. Anybody who has seen it has loved the movie, and so that was the challenging part, is pulling off humor and making it work. And I thought we did that to a T. Okay.
And yeah, you never did a role quite like that afterwards. Like, I'm looking through your credits here. Like, you were in A Few Good Men. that was definitely a different tone.
I was in The Rock. I was in A Few Good Men. I've been in some pretty interesting films. I was in Malice. I got to operate on Nicole Kidman's naked body. That was always fun.
You bet.
Yeah, I mean, more recently, I have done some more comedies. Of course, was in Heavyweights, the Kids Who Go to Fat Camp comedy with Ben Stiller.
Okay.
And that was actually Judd Apatow's first movie that he co-wrote with my friend Steve Brill, who directed it. Mm-hmm. I was also in a couple more Judd Apatow movies, including Cable Guy.
Yep.
With Jim Carrey, and Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell, about the soccer kids.
Mm-hmm. I enjoyed Kicking and Screaming.
Say one more time?
I enjoyed Kicking and Screaming. What was it like working with Will Ferrell?
It was incredible. He was so open and giving and fun, and it was directed by Jesse Dillon, who is Bob Dylan's son,
Okay.
And Jesse basically just would roll the camera and let Will do whatever he wanted, and we just had a blast. It was so much fun working with him, and almost all of my scenes were exterior day soccer field. So we came to work in the morning and went home when it got dark. You know, it was a great job. It was a great group of actors, great group of people. But that was another Judd movie, and then I did another one called Drill Bit Taylor with Owen Wilson, which dealt with high school kids, and he kind of became their bodyguard.
Not a very good one. He wasn't a very good bodyguard.
No, he wasn't. But pardon me. Yeah, my career, it's I've been able to work as an actor my whole career. I didn't have to wait tables or deliver pizza or what have you, but primarily it was I was one of the lucky ones. As I did comedy, I did drama, I did TV, I did movies, I did commercials, and I did voiceovers. I did all across the board. I found success. Most success I found was in the world of voiceovers. I was the voice of IHOP for almost 7 years, and been the voice of many things. And so that's been able to keep me from waiting tables.
Any memories of Jim Carrey, working with him?
Jim and I actually go way back. He and I kind of came up together trying to make it in this biz. He and I and Damon Wayans auditioned for a movie called Earth Girls Are Easy together. They would bring us in 3 at a time, and that was the group I went in. I went with Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, and myself as these aliens who didn't have any dialogue, and it was all improvised and just to see what we could do. And they ended up making it in the movie, and I didn't. But Jim always remembered me. When I worked with him again on Cable Guy, and whenever I'd run into him and see him, he's been one of the nicer guys, and very giving, and just a real funny guy. When we did the end of Cable Guy, if there had been a sequel, it would have been about me and him. I was the paramedic in the helicopter who picked him up at the end of Cable Guy, and he said, "Are you really my buddy?" And then he looks into the camera and starts laughing, giggling. So, unfortunately, that movie did not get a sequel. So, but
it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I've really had a blessed career so far in terms of working with really funny people, really gifted writers, gifted directors. Ben Stiller, of course, directed Cable Guy, and been very lucky.
What were your memories from The Rock? I mean, you had 3 big heavyweights in that.
Yeah, and I have an interesting story. I did 4 graduate films of student directors, when I was starting out, and they're starting out. And the first one I did was for a kid by the name of Michael Bay at Art Center.
Okay.
And I did his graduate film at Art Center, and he, remembered me and brought, put me in commercials, and then of course put me in The Rock, put me in Transformers 2, and is still, a good friend of mine, to this day. And then a couple other, then I did one with a kid by the name of John Turteltaub, who was become a huge director and directed the National Treasure movies with Nicolas Cage and, all sorts of movies. And then the next gentleman I did a movie for, well, it was two people. It was directed by Matt Reeves and produced by J.J. Abrams. And
Okay.
J.J., of course, has gone on to do a few things since then. And then the last one is was another an actor that I had worked with on a movie called Made in America with Ted Danson and Whoopi Goldberg, and his name is Sean Levy. And Sean played a young director in the movie at the same time he was going to USC Film School. But when it came time to do his graduate film, he called me up and said, "Would you be in it?" And so I was in his graduate film. So Sean has gone on to do, incredible things, including creating Stranger Things that people love. So I was very lucky when I did these graduate films. In fact, these 4 graduate films that I did, the filmmakers that made those have gone on to be, the top filmmakers of all time. and grossed over, I think it was $16 billion in box office. So there's quite a little bit of trivia. A little bit of trivia for you kids out there. I guess without me, there wouldn't have been, J.J. Abrams or Michael Bay. No, I'm kidding, but I was there at the beginning.
Well, speaking of stranger things, you can't get much stranger than UHF.
Yeah, no, you can't get much stranger than UHF. It was out there. It was, for 30 years ago when we made it, it was, I don't want to say ahead of its time, but it really was. Captured that era, captured that feel, and was wacko, was cuckoo wacko.
Have you and Al, I know you've seen each other a few times since then, has the subject of a sequel ever popped up, or is he just against it, or what's the story? Like, what's holding it back?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know that we've giggled about it and talked about it, but it's just, never really became a serious subject. Hopefully, we can do something one of these days. He did invite me on his show, the Weird Al Show, where
Mm-hmm.
I was a part of a team that was, we were cutting through the earth with our big, I forget what it's called, cutting through, making tunnels, through the earth, and we stumble upon his cave, the Weird Al cave, and I got to work with David Landers and Michael McKean, who of course Lenny and Squiggy
Yep.
from Vernon Shirley.
I've had David Landers on here.
And David and I did a movie together as well. He's a very, very nice guy, and the big man, Clarence Clemens from the Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, and myself. That was the foursome. So that was quite interesting. So yeah, Al and I have definitely hooked up since UHF, and but we never really got serious about making a sequel. But it's never say never. It's never too late. Let's put something together.
I remember the episode of the Weird Al Show where Randy Macho Man Savage fights Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
I think I missed that one, but that sounds incredible. I've got to go look that one up.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah, do you ever do the convention scenes? Like, is there anything going on for UHF for the conventions?
I know for a fact that if I did, I would, have a lot of people, would love to get a signed picture of Bobo the Clown, or me getting hit with a frying pan or something. But I have never done it, so I think it's time that I did look into that. I also appeared on a Deep Space Nine episode of Star Trek, and also a show called Alien Nation, where I played an alien. So I mean, I've got some definitely some cult fans out there that know me from other things as well.
The conventions are fun. I just did one for the first time 2 years ago. I was invited by a Canadian actress to go to Toronto to assist her at her table, and I've gone back twice since, and it's just been a blast.
Yeah, it's something that I definitely want to do, and I should be doing. It should be, just because the fans want it. Fans would love to get, some piece of UHF history.
Yeah, there's quite a few of you. I think that, like a big group thing. Like, I'm pretty sure Al and Emo Phillips and people like that show up to that thing. I definitely think it would be a big. Yeah. I think so. So
I do too. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people should get on that for the cons. Do you have any? Huh?
Say one more time.
I was going to ask you if you had any charities that you're involved in.
Right now, I haven't, but I have been involved in charities in the past. The charities that I have been involved with are mostly for local food banks here in Los Angeles, trying to put food together for all the homeless people here. We have a huge homeless problem here in Los Angeles. That I grew up in Santa Monica, lived in LA my entire life, and I've just witnessed it grow and grow and grow my whole life. So that's something that's I would love to try to to help be a solution for.
Yeah, I've actually had another guest mention that too. She said that she just sees it everywhere, and yeah, that's horrible. I don't know what can be done about that, but
well, it's yeah, it is an issue. It is something that we either need more living and affordable living spaces for people. We need food to feed people that can't afford to pay for their own food.
yeah,
So it takes time and donations and people who, when the wealth of the world is in the top 0.5% of the population owns half of all the wealth.
yeah.
It's pretty easy to figure out where the solutions are going to have to come from, and that's from the wealthiest people are going to have to be altruistic, and a lot of them are. A lot of them do make huge donations towards cities and education and other things. So good for them.
Now, what are your TV credits? What's your best memory? Because I know you've mentioned like Star Trek, and you've mentioned and other things like.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine was an incredible memory. It was a great experience. I worked with Nana Visitor, and she was amazing. It was a really interesting episode. It was a flashback episode where she gets to meet her mother, and I played a Bajoran working for the Cardassians, and that was great. Of course, I mentioned 90210. That was fun. I did that 4 episodes of that show over the 3-year period.
Did Tori hit you with a frying pan?
Tori didn't hit me with a frying pan, but she did. She couldn't be nicer. That whole cast and crew was incredible, and they're actually reuniting to do it again. They're coming back on Fox 90210. The original cast is going to be on this summer.
Did you meet Shannon Doherty?
Say again?
Did you meet Shannon Doherty?
I did work with Dan, and I worked with all of them. They were really, really nice people. I was also the token white boy in many a black sitcom. I did, of course, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, not once but twice.
Okay.
I did Hanging with Mr. Cooper. I did Living Single. I did the Jamie Foxx Show. I did a bunch of sitcoms. And I myself have done pilots for TV shows. I just didn't work out. I did 9 pilots over an 11-year period, and only one of them got picked up for 6 episodes, and that was a show called Life and Stuff with Rick Reynolds, a comedian, and that was it.
So what are you doing now, and what's up in the future? What do you want to plug and promote on here?
Well, right now I'm recurring on 2 television series.
Mm-hmm.
One is called Pen 15 on Hulu, and we did 10 episodes, and it was a success. So much so that Hulu has ordered 14 more episodes for a second season. So we're waiting for the writers to finish writing, and then we're going back to work on that. And in the meantime, I'm working on Shameless, which I started last season. I play Bob Tamietti, and my daughters are cuckoo wacko girls on the show. I don't know if you watch it on Showtime.
Actually,
Shameless.
I'll be frank, I only get my TV set up to watch my Blu-rays, so that's why I'm so estranged when it comes to the TV credits. But I do know the name.
Those 2 shows, I just did an episode of 911.
You got something called Penis on here.
What's that?
You got something on here called Penis.
Well, it's 1015 is what it's.
Oh, gee, it looks like penis on here on the IMDb.
1015. It looks like penis.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, you're right. It looks like.
And that is the show. Yeah, that is a really funny show, and I highly recommend people go seek it out on Hulu. And it's about these 2 gals who basically turn of the century, year 2000, middle school, but they're in their 30s, but they're playing 13-year-olds opposite other 13-year-olds. So it's really an interesting show.
I'm looking at the Internet Movie Database here, and I'm not being a joke here. I actually thought it said penis because it looks like that when you look at all the blue.
It looks like you spell penis, but it's Pen 15.
Oh my goodness! I feel embarrassed I said that.
I hope they did that to get people to talk about it, But speaking of Internet Movie Database, IMDb. I am David Bowe, and I always tell people that, if you need to look up my credits, you go to IMDb. I am David Bowe, Internet Movie Database, and look up all my credits.
Yes. Now, you mentioned, of course, Nicole Kidman. Were you nervous about doing that scene where you had to operate on her nude body?
Well, in truth to be told, when we were in the operating room, there was a dummy underneath there. It wasn't really her naked body, unfortunately. But it was, I did get to meet her, of course, and work with her on a movie, and that was fun. I also worked with her ex-husband, Tom Cruise, on A Few Good Men. And, I've worked with some pretty big actors. I did a movie called Air America with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr. We were in Thailand for 6 weeks doing that movie. I've got to travel all over the world. I did that movie in Thailand. I did a movie in India called Air Panic with Barbara Carrera. I did a commercial in Alaska for Burger King where I got to ride a dog sled on a glacier. We had to take a helicopter up to this glacier. There were no roads that led up there, and I've had some pretty neat experiences.
No doubt. No doubt. What were your memories of Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr., a.k.a. Iron Man?
Back then he wasn't Iron Man yet, and he had been in a little bit of trouble, and he had some handlers making sure he was okay. And he did a great job in that movie, and of course it led to, not too long after that, he did Chaplin, where he played Charlie Chaplin, and Sherlock Holmes and Iron Man, and he's one of our best actors by far and away. Mel Gibson was incredible to work with. Couldn't have been nicer, made everybody feel at home. Tim Thomerson was one of the actors on the movie who's a stand-up comedian, and he would make sure that Tim would entertain us all and do all of his bits for us. I got to work with Marshall Bell and Art LaFleur and some other great character actors. That was a great experience working in Thailand with Mel and Robert Downey Jr. and all these other great actors.
Did you ever been out my way here in New Brunswick, Canada?
I have worked in Vancouver.
Okay.
I did an Aaron Spelling show called Robin's Hoods.
Okay.
I did a guest star on that show, which I shot up in Vancouver. I've never made it to Toronto. I've come close, and I just read for a show called Suits that films in Toronto. And I did not get the part, but hopefully they'll bring me back for something else. And I'm a big fan of Canada. I've been up there visiting. I've been up there. I have relatives that were from Alberta. So yeah, big fan of Canada.
Love Canada. Here's my final question. What's the most unique, interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Asked to sign?
Yeah.
Huh. It's probably a part of a woman's anatomy, because, how long is that going to stand there? How long is that going to stay there? But I'm happy to do it. That's where you want me to sign. I'm going to sign it all day long. That would be a woman's breast, probably, if you hadn't already guessed. So there you go.
Well, I've heard that from a few other people, too. I hear a lot of people signing body parts and then seeing them later with the signature tattooed on them.
Oh, that's true. Well, I don't think mine was ever tattooed, but yeah, if it was someone that important, then they would get it tattooed. But I'm just little old Bobo the Clown. I don't think that anybody ever got my autograph tattooed on their body. You don't
think your name is on some woman's boobs somewhere?
Yeah, I hope so. You would hope, you would aspire to something like that.
That would be the next thing for Bobbles.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what? We got to get a UHF sequel out there. I think people want it.
I agree.
I
agree. I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, you know what, David? I appreciate so much you coming on here and reminiscing with me and celebrating this film and talking about your other projects. I'm very, very honored. I was thrilled when you got back to me, because a lot of times Facebook filters messages. So I was so happy to have you reach back out to me, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm so sorry that there was a mix-up in terms of like me getting back to you, but then I somehow kept missing each other, and then we finally were able to work it out, and I'm so glad that we were, and I'm so thank you so much for having me, and it's been a blast, and hopefully we can do it again some other time.
You know what? I'd gladly have you back on here. I'll keep watch on your credits. Like I said, if you got anything coming up or whatnot, feel free to reach out. I'll gladly have you on and promote whatever it is you need to promote.
I certainly will.
Yes. Now, before I let you go, I was wondering if I could get you to do a plug for my show.
Sure, of course. Hi, this is David Bowe from Weird Al Yankovic's UHF, saying you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's... Sorry, let's try one more time. Almost there.
Yep.
Hi, this is David Bowe, and you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise out of New Brunswick, Canada.
Yes. And we all know he's going to sit back tonight and have some Yappy's dog treats.
And hopefully we'll all have some Yappy's dog treats for dessert.
Yeah, and Mrs. Hockenberger's butter cookies, but I have a feeling Weird Al ate all those.
Oh, he finished those for sure.
But you might have some Twinkie Wiener sandwiches that you can share with Fran Drescher.
Always. If Fran calls, I will be there. She's a good friend.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David, for coming on here today and talking about this film and reminiscing. I really appreciate it. This is a huge honor.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And we will, like I said, we will do it again when we're talking about the sequel.
We better get that going. We got to get on Al about that.
You got it.
You take care and God bless.
All right, you too, Greg. Thank you so much.
No problem. You take care.